Hey there, everybody. That wonderful moment at the beginning where you don't know if anybody is seeing you or nobody is seeing you. Because I don't really know if anybody's here yet, right? YouTube always makes it so that, like the first minute, people on the other end, oh, wow, somebody's here already. I really like seeing that. That was much quicker than usual, right? So we'll wait for a lot more people to get here, but just, so everybody kind of understands the rules of the road, so to speak. This is like an astrology question and answer session, but what I'm not here to do is to answer questions about your horoscope, because horoscope assessment really needs to be done on an in-depth level. Just making like simple assertions based upon a person's Rashi chart does not always, show up accurate. Or really, most people are asking me to make assessments based on one or two planetary placements in their Rashi chart. And that doesn't always, work out to be accurate. And that's why I don't like to do that. But general astrological questions are absolutely okay. So just so everybody knows, I recently started a Jay Meany webinar course and have absolutely been loving it. The more I'm teaching Jay Meany, the more I'm getting from Jay Meany. And I really just absolutely love Jay Meany Sutras because he wrote things in coded language, which confuses a lot of people. But the way that Jay Meany is written is it makes it so that you have to ponder what it is that he's saying in order to get meaning from it. And then over time, all these different layers of meaning begin to reveal themselves. And when you're ready for the teaching that that one sutra is trying to give you, poof, it makes sense, right? And it's absolutely wonderful text. By the way, if you want to, you can still register for this course until September 1st, and the course is prorated now. You'd have to catch up with the first couple of weeks' recordings. If you go to my website, AuthenticAstrology.com, there's a link to the courses page. So let's see if anybody has any general astrological questions. Hello, everyone, first of all, because I'm seeing everyone saying hello, but I have not seen any astrological questions yet. Okay, so while I'm waiting for that first question, I will do blatant self-promotion. So also, while you're there on my website, feel free to visit the astrological services page. Okay, now we've got some questions that are surfacing. K2 behaves like K2, and I think a lot of people get confused by that statement of K2 behaves like Mars and Rahu behaves like Saturn. K2 has its own energy. K2 is a blind planet, right? Whereas Mars isn't considered a blind planet. So there are all sorts of different energies, but really the interesting thing and why that whole verse of K2 behaving like Mars and Rahu behaving like Saturn is very relevant is that if you look at the individual's chart and you see what Mars rules in their chart, then during their Ketu dasha, those are going to be some skills that they're able to apply to approach their Ketu dasha. And equally, when you look at the houses that Saturn rules in the horoscope, then what you'll see is that those are the areas of life that the individual is trying to survive through during their Rahu dasha. And that's really, in terms of what I feel, the meaning of that particular bit of information. In addition to that, if we understand Ketu and Rahu are the army of the royal court of planets, okay? And K2 means flag. So K2 is that part of the army that maps out the territory that's there already, that looks at what one can has within their kingdom, so to speak. And a good general, which Mars is the general, a good general is going to be able to create better battle plans from within the walls of the castle or within the walls of what has been captured already. Whereas Rahu being connected with Saturn, Saturn's the servant. So Rahu represents the armed forces that are going out and exploring the lands that are unknown and sleeping in difficult conditions and not really knowing the lay of the land. And that's the unknown side of things. And on that level, Ketu's like Mars and Rahu's like Saturn too. And so that's really the best way to make sense of that particular energy. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, so somebody's asking a question which I always use as a good opportunity to dispel myths, okay? I have Venus conjuncting Saturn in Libra in Navamsha. Is that bad? Well, first of all, there's not a bad and a good, okay? Things exist in your horoscope because it's representing karma that you're here to work through, and to call it bad is refusing the opportunity. Challenging, that's another thing, right? Saturn, exalted Saturn is not going to be as challenging as, say, Saturn in a great enemy sign or Saturn in an enemy sign, right? Those are the more difficult Saturns. So you've got a strong Saturn and a strong Venus that are there together. That can actually be, you know, really good, stable, refined energy. It's not bad per se. But I'm a strong believer nothing's bad. It's just a perspective on difficult and easy. Okay, let's see what else we've got. So I'm just pausing to read things. Okay, so somebody's asking, will Ketu Dasha be influenced mainly by the Lord of Ketu or the planet it is in conjunction with? So they're saying, example, Ketu in Scorpio conjunct Venus. Will Venus or Mars influence it most? In periods that are, on one level, it relates to the strength of the planet. I should say that first. Strength of Mars, strength of Venus. But the best way to understand that is during Ketu Venus, then the Venus would, you know, be very prominent. Mars is always going to be prominent as the dispositor of Ketu, though. So for most things in terms of determining dignity or well-being of Ketu, we need to look at Mars. During Ketu Venus, though, Venus is also going to influence it, and you'll find many more hints of that Venusian influence, right? It's there at all times too, just like the Ketu Mars influence is there at all times, but it's more prominent during that particular Antardasha, Ketu Venus, etc. Okay. Let's see what else we've got. Okay, so somebody's saying, yes, exactly. So what would Ketu going over Saturn do? It depends on what dasha period you're in, because transits are always dasha dependent. So please don't then type in your dasha period, because really I have to look at your whole horoscope. I can't really tell you what a Ketu transit over your Saturn is going to do for you individually if I don't know your horoscope. One level is dependent on, if you've got a strong Saturn, it can bring good levels of detachment. That's one positive thing. But really, we can only give generalizations if we don't know a little bit more about your horoscope, because to come out and say anything else is really going to make it so that I say something and then you go off and believe it and then find out it's not true and you lose your faith in astrology, right? I'd rather say things that are more spot on than things that are kind of halfway there. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's see what else we've got. Oh, thanks, Farah, for saying that my last upload was spot on. Oh, thanks, Jeanette. You can schedule something in with me. As a matter of fact, I think I might have a day or two free next week randomly, because I've had some cancellations. So you can go to my website, AuthenticAstrology.com, and you'll find the links that you need there. Okay, so let's see what else we've got here. I'm just scrolling down the page. Yes, with Jayamini Sutras, the thing is there are many different translations of Jayamini Sutras. Best thing to do is, if you know Sanskrit, to read it in Sanskrit. I'm not that great with Sanskrit. The good translations so far are Ernst Wilhelm's translation, and he's only done the first couple of chapters so far. I highly recommend that book, though. And that's what we're working with on the course. And the most relevant bits of Jaimini are really in those first 3 chapters. Okay. So somebody's saying, just a very general thing. I can give you general about what happens when Saturn transits natal Jupiter and Jupiter transits natal Saturn. That is structured growth, structured expansion in those particular areas. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. So somebody's saying, can I talk generally on Mercury in Revati? A lot of people tend to think that when a planet is in its own nakshatra, that it naturally becomes strong. That it doesn't work in the same way that planets in their own rashis work. It's not the same way. There may be somewhat of an at-home feeling with the energy of that nakshatra, but if that Mercury is somewhat weakened or afflicted, that's going to impact Revati Nakshatra. But a good way to understand planets in connection with nakshatras is not really, in my humble opinion, to understand them as rulers of nakshatras, because that information is only there in terms of creating Vimshotri Dasha. The best way to understand that is to understand that the nakshatras are connected to deities. Another good way to understand the nakshatras is to read the translations of Taittiriya Brahmana that are out there. Those really have a lot of very helpful information on it. And a good way to think of the planet in connection with the nakshatra in terms of what its responsibility is with the nakshatra, think of it as a messenger or an emissary. So, if you've got a kingdom per se, the king will send the messenger out to take a message to another kingdom or to take a message somewhere, right? And the king goes, I want you to say this, 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 and this when you get there. Well, that messenger is the messenger. He has his own personality, his own things. So obviously, he is going to influence the outcome of that message as he's carrying that message. And so if the messenger is kind of a dimwit, right, he's going to get the king's message all wrong. But if the messenger is, good and strong and sharp-witted, then he's going to get the message all right. And that's how planets can influence the nakshatras they're associated with. But to think of them as the rulers of the nakshatra is not really an accurate representation of it. Okay? Somebody saying tropical astrology versus sidereal astrology, which is better, because I get different results in each style. I don't like to tell anybody what is better. I think that it is up to the astrologer personally in terms of what they feel works best for them. In terms of different results that you're getting, a good way to understand that is different results do not always necessarily translate as being contradictory. Different results can translate as being complementary. In other words, rather than apples or oranges, apples and oranges together, right? Kind of get that? So it's best to not think about the two as this concept of this is right, that's wrong, this is right. And I know lots of people would disagree with me, which is why I don't want to go too deeply into this subject. But you'll find that they can both provide some pretty interesting information. And it's a matter of personal choice as per the astrologer. I think this whole arguing over which one people should do and which one's correct is really kind of silly when we can learn a lot from each other if we just leave all that aside. Okay, debate is good. Conflict and kind of calling people out is not good. Okay. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Mercury in Ashleisha at Gandanta and being the Atmakaraka also in the ascendant, good for psychology? It can be. I do a lot of work with things that are called the Baladi Avastas and Jagradati Avastas, as well as the Shadbala of the planets. And so that's really what's going to determine the strength. So I can't really say on the spot, like, you know, that's going to create that for you. And we also have to look at the other influences to the Atmakaraka. A good thing to do is to look at whether there is by Rashi aspect or conjunction an influence from the waxing moon. That really helps to make somebody a healer. Okay. But, you know, I'd have to really go more into depth with that. That's something I'm teaching on the Jaimini course, as a matter of fact. And yes, again, you can join the course. The course is prorated. If you want to know the prorated fee, you can email me directly, or you can just register through the site too. Okay. All right. Sometimes I'm going to avoid certain questions, and I'll let you know why. Because really, different people work with different techniques. So me saying I don't, want to work with that translates into somebody else thinking that I'm saying that somebody else's technique is not valid for them, and I don't believe that, right? So somebody's saying, do I believe in superimposing the Navamsha chart over the Rashi chart? It's not a matter of whether I believe in it or not. I just don't work with it because I find other things that help me to uncover the information that I'm looking for. And so I don't really find a need to do that, and I've never explored it. So it's not really for me to say, okay? All right, let's see what we've got. Somebody's saying, is Venus a significator for literature, or is it Jupiter? It depends on whether you're talking about somebody being a writer or just literature itself. Okay. What combination shows a good writer? So this is the difficult thing. I would have to teach you a lot of Jaimini theory in order to explain some of these things to you. Basically, with these particular techniques that I'm going to tell you next, and not in every case with Jaimini, if the Atmakaraka is in an even sign, then you read backwards. If the Atmakaraka is in an odd sign, then you read forwards. Okay, so Jupiter with a waxing moon either conjuncting it or in the fifth from it, or even in the second and the third from it, is a good combination for a writer. You want to examine that in the Navamsha chart primarily, the Rashi chart as well, as equal as the Dashamsha chart. The Dashamsha chart would show how successful the person can be with doing that. But you have to know how to look for these things and how to judge the strength, okay? Best thing to do is to either take the Jaimini course, or B, even if you're not scheduling a consultation with me, if you know another astrologer who's really good with Jaimini techniques, then schedule something with them and have them look at that for you. Because it's a bit of a tricky thing. I've kind of given you the technique, but you have to look at a lot of other things mixed in with it. All right. So let's see what else we've got. Okay, so somebody's saying, what would be the strongest nakshatra for Mars? Well, that's hard to say because it's going to depend on what I like to call the emissary, or the planet associated with the nakshatra, meaning the sun. So if you've got a debilitated sun, that doesn't help much. But obviously, Mars in Uttada Ashadha would bring some of the could be a very strong placement. I think that would be stronger than Bharani if we're just looking at the strength of Mars. But you have to take into account the strength of Uttada Ashadha and the strength of Bharani too. So, it's not just a one-tiered thing. Okay. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Venus is the student. So somebody's saying, for someone studying literature, which planet is the significator? Look for Venus in that instance. Okay. Let's see what else we've got. Getting a degree, in my opinion, is a fourth house related thing. Okay. And please don't ask your questions several times. It's kind of equivalent to typing in capital letters. So it's not fair to everybody else here too. Okay. So just, please just type it once. If I get to it, I get to it. If I don't, I don't. I do try to get to as many questions as I can. Okay. So let's see what else we've got. What do people mean by the moon reflects? Well, the moon receives the light of the sun, so it reflects the light of the sun. The sun, symbolically in astrology, relates to the Atman, or the soul of everything, which also relates to our own individual soul. Manas is the sensory mind, or our the moon is our manas, or our sensory mind, our consciousness. And our consciousness is meant to reflect the light of our soul. And sometimes it reflects the light of our soul well, and sometimes it reflects the light of the soul in a weak manner, right? And so that's really what people are referring to when they say the moon reflects. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. What about money? How to tell in which period money will come? Well, you have to have strong planets, and strong planets doesn't just mean their dignity. Dignity, for the most part, generally shows how the planet feels as it's going about its responsibilities. You have to know how to judge strength of planets in deeper ways in order to really very accurately determine that. But second house factors that are strong in being in the dasha and antardasha period of planets that are sharing a second house agenda, meaning they're both associated with it, or fourth house agenda too, because that's more like fortune, things like fixed assets. But those planets have to be strong. And so it's never just a simple, boom, this is going to happen, this. And that's why, for the most part, people tend to look at their charts and go, oh, I've got this strong Jupiter in my chart, and Jupiter is a benefic. And so that means that my Jupiter dasha is going to rain manna from heaven. And then they get into their Jupiter dasha and find that that's not the case. And that's because in some other area of the horoscope, Jupiter may be debilitated. And so that area of your life doesn't go that well. So you can't just go with like the simplicity of the strength of the planet in the Rashi chart. It doesn't show the full horoscope. Okay. Let's see what we've got going on here. Just skimming over people's questions, seeing which one I can take next. That's not necessarily true what you're saying about Jaimini just gives the sign of the planets. I mean, doesn't give the sign of the planets, but only the houses. There are many different ways to translate Jaimini. Okay, and that's why it's so confusing. Jaimini wrote in code. Like, one of the main ways he wrote in code, just to explain this, is he would take certain words that when you added the syllable together, they would create a number, which is pretty common in Sanskrit texts. But the way Jaimini went further with that is he would take words, take the numerical equivalence of it, and then divide it by 12, and you were supposed to take the remainder in order to understand which Rashi he's talking about. And so Jaimini is a bit confusing, and so some people translate it in different ways. I would say the best translations to trust are if you know that the person who did the translation spent years and years on the translation, rather than just trying to whip out a quick translation without really pondering over what each of the sutras means, right? Because Jaimini's sutras are not always easy to figure out what he's trying to say. And if we presuppose Jaimini, we quite often get it wrong. And Jaimini really didn't intend for us to do that. He meant for us to really think over each particular sutra so that its meaning would reveal itself to us. Okay? All right, let's see what else we've got here. Let's see what we've got going on. Looking for questions I can answer. I probably have another 10 minutes on here, people, just so everybody knows. Okay, let's see. Well, planets and kindreds are going to give focus to the chart. It depends on where the rest of the planets are at, really. Okay. In terms of, what I've seen with those particular instances. So somebody's asking, have I seen charts with no planets in kindreds, and what was the common thing that you've seen? So it depends on whether the rest of the planets are in trines or, apoklimas, or it depends upon a lot of different things. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. I have to get a throat lozenge, people. Please pardon me. Okay, let's see what we've got. So everybody's talking to each other and nobody's putting questions here. Okay. I know there's a lot of questions up above, but some of them I'm having to kind of skip over. Really simple questions are going to be very helpful. If we have like very long-winded questions, they're hard to read. And I've got glasses, you see, so it makes it even harder. So let's see what else we've got here. I want to say a little word because somebody's saying, what is the significant planet or yoga to be able to think more straight and less complicated to be able to get my degree? I'm not going to look at your astrological things because I'd really have to look at your full horoscope for that. But the thing is planetary yogas are a vital part of Vedic astrology. But I think that quite often people don't know how to really work with them. Planetary yogas were really, on a certain level, a good way to get the student to think astrologically about why these planets interacting with each other can create something. But it doesn't mean that they create it absolutely in every single instance. It depends upon the strength of those planets, whether that planet has more of an agenda for difficulty in the horoscope than it does creating good things. All sorts of subtle things determine whether or not yogas tend to produce things. A good Mercury is very important to what I'm saying, as well as a good Jupiter. They're both going to contribute to good understanding. So it depends on whether you're having more of a problem with understanding or being able to read things clearly or take things in clearly. Okay. I wouldn't necessarily say the D60 is the person. I think we're looking at different layers of the individual, but not just the person. Somebody's saying, do remedies really work? I will tell you my take on remedies. Okay. Remedies can work, but the best way that they work is to help you to focus on resolving your karma. If you're relying upon remedies to magically turn your life around, give you everything you want, make you a millionaire, bring in Mr. or Mrs. Right, do any of those things, you're really kind of wasting your time. And if you go to an astrologer and the first thing that they tell you is you're cursed with this, that, this, or the other thing, but if you buy this $2,000 gemstone from me, then it's going to make your life go really well. Don't go there. Okay. I'll tell you that much. Don't go there. Instead, understand why things are out of alignment. Really, the best remedy that you can do for your horoscope is understanding what's wrong in your life and doing the work to rectify it. That's the best remedy. Focus on what's wrong. Don't expect things to magically transform your life. Instead, if you're doing a remedy, do it as part of the work of you working on yourself. Okay. Let's see what else we've got. Significance of Atmakaraka Mahadasha. Well, basically, the Atmakaraka, the dasha of the Atmakaraka, the individual would really be focused on who they are, being true to themselves, realizing their calling. Calling doesn't necessarily mean career. Calling means, who am I? What is my position in life? What am I here to do? It depends on the strength or weakness of that Atmakaraka, though, in terms of how that might play itself out. Okay? Okay, let's see what else we've got. Okay, so just a reminder, if you want to register for the J-Mini course, it is prorated now. You can go to my website, AuthenticAstrology.com, find the link for the courses page. There is a link for the J-Mini course there. Also, if you'd like for me to take a look at your horoscope for you, I do offer several different levels of astrological service. Basically, because I believe in trying to make something that is accessible to everybody. And those are all listed on my astrological services page if you'd like to book with me. Okay. Let's see what else we've got. Well, somebody's saying, what if 8th Lord is debilitated in 12th house, meaning the moon? Okay, well, I'm just giving a vast generalization. If that, all other things being equal, like if it's showing in the Dwadashamsha, and if it's showing in the Hora, and if it's showing in the Chaturtamsha as well, that these things are the case, all of which need to be taken into consideration, which is why I don't like giving these answers. But all those things being taken into consideration, there might be a problem for the individual getting an inheritance from their ancestors. That's just one thing, but really, it's best if you really have astrological questions to, and I know it's not easy to get an astrological consultation, because that's going to answer your questions more clearly and more efficiently and more accurately than trying to get an astrologer to tell you something about your horoscope on YouTube. Okay. So let's see what else we've got. Have time for probably one or two more. Let's see what we've got. Do I only look at the D2 and D4 for determining the person's financial condition? No, you look at the Rashi chart too, but what the Rashi chart shows is where the individual is focusing their life path. So let's say the individual is going, right, I'm focusing my life path on finances right now, and my financial planets are weak. So I'm focusing my life path on finances, and my financial path, I feel, is weak. But if I, in the Hora chart can show, well, it's actually quite strong. And so then it shows that there's something about the attitude of the individual in terms of what they've got in their life that really is the root or the cause of the problem. So, that's kind of the difference on some levels between the Rashi chart and the Varga charts. The Rashi chart is really just a Varga chart in and of itself, albeit a very important Varga chart that shows the life path of the individual, carries the only astronomy in the chart, which is why if you try to do planetary aspects in the Varga charts, they don't always work. Why? Because unless those planets are also aspecting each other in the Rashi chart, it ain't happening. Okay. But the thing is planets are almost always aspecting each other, because it's not just the full drishti aspects that are vital in astrology. Planets create aspects when they're, a few signs apart, several different levels of the distance between the planets. Those are judged on a scale of 0 to 60. Those are the full Parashara aspects. So planets quite often are always aspecting each other. But let's say, for instance, you're looking at a Varga chart and you're trying to do planetary aspects in the Varga chart, and you go, wow, Jupiter's in the 5th from Venus. My Jupiter is aspecting my Venus, from the ninth aspect. And that's really good. That's going to be really strong. I'm going to have a relationship in this period. Well, that may not happen, or the relationship that it yields might not be that meaningful. Why? Because if you go and you look in the Rashi chart and Jupiter's like maybe one house away from Venus in the Rashi chart, then that aspect's not really there. And then it comes out inaccurate for you, and you're scratching your head wondering why you've got these planets aspecting each other in your Varga chart and it's not working. That's the reason why. But Rashi aspects you can do in any Varga chart. They will always yield results, and they're always mutual. Okay, so Rashi aspects work better for Varga charts. Okay, let's see what else we've got. I'm laughing at what Larry Legend Channel typed. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. So many books on astrology, it really just depends on your approach. Okay, I think we are going to stop here for today. So just a reminder, if you want to take part in the J-Mini course, it is still open for registration. Registration fee is prorated. For the first 2 classes, you'd have to catch up with the class recordings. You can do that at AuthenticAstrology.com. Look for the courses page in the drop-down links. As well, astrological services of many different types and scales of fee are available through my website on the astrological services page. That's going to do it, everyone. Thank you all for coming and asking such wonderful questions, and we'll talk to you all next time. Bye now.